Hello and welcome in to another edition of the Tech in 10 post-game show. From the Ruston Daily Leader, I am sports reporter Matt Belinson coming to you from Joe I.E. Stadium after what I would say a thrilling win for the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, 40-24 over the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders. In a must-win situation for Louisiana Tech, not only for bowl eligibility, the math that obviously they're not technically out of bowl eligibility, but I would say at this point it seems unlikely. But either way, you get a win, you increase your chances. But not only that, we heard at the beginning of this week from Sonny Cumbie and multiple players, multiple challenges to this team to see who they really are, to see if they had what it takes to get over the hump and prove to themselves that they were capable of winning a game. Obviously they come into tonight versus Middle Tennessee back-to-back overtime losses to Rice and to FIU. It has not been a good month of October for the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. And then obviously we turn the page here. First game in November, the Bulldogs get a convincing win over a conference opponent. We'll dive into, I guess, the specifics here in a second, but I think the overall takeaway is Sonny Cumbie said it himself in his opening statement. He saw his team respond in a must-win situation where your coach calls you out. How are you going to respond? And obviously, Louisiana Tech came into this game 2-6 overall, 1-3 in Conference USA. Obviously, a lot of their goals in the postseason were pretty much wiped off the table at this point. However, like I said, you win, you give yourself a chance at least for bowl eligibility at this point. We'll see how that bodes next week against UTSA, but with that being said, we can dive into the specifics of this win. And let's start with the third quarter and the turnover barrage that ensued for Louisiana Tech. I've never seen anything like that in my entire life. Back to back, literally turnovers for these two teams. I'm going to read you the recap here that I wrote down in the simplest terms if you didn't watch this game to get a sense of just how crazy this was. So Middle Tennessee started the second half with the ball. Less than a minute into the half, throws a pick to Miles Brooks, and then Louisiana Tech takes over. Less than 5 plays after the initial interception, Parker McNeil throws an interception on Louisiana Tech's first drive of the half. Middle Tennessee gets the ball back and then throws another interception. This time Willie Roberts returns it for a pick six. Just absolute insanity. It puts Louisiana Tech up 34-21 pretty early in this second half, giving the ball back to Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee drives past midfield and throws another interception to Miles Brooks again. Just an insane start to the second half. But not only that, that's not where it ended. Louisiana Tech would punt, and then on Middle Tennessee's next drive, a punt was blocked by Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech would cover inside the Middle Tennessee 20-yard line to set up shop. They would kick a 32-yard field goal after the blocked punt. Then on Middle Tennessee's next offensive series, Cecil Singleton sacks Chase Cunningham, the quarterback for Middle Tennessee, causes a fumble that Louisiana Tech recovers, and the Bulldogs kick a 36-yard field goal to go up 40-21 going into the fourth quarter. It was just an insane quarter, but it gave the Bulldogs the cushion that they needed. They went into halftime of 27-21, and you felt, obviously you were controlling the game from a score standpoint, but Middle Tennessee was sticking around. Louisiana Tech was getting a lot of chunk yardage through the air with Parker McNeil and Tre Harris, which we'll get to here in a second, but Middle Tennessee just kept sticking around. That run game for them really helped out. 156 yards in the first half, almost 8.5 yards a carry almost in the first half. Kept Middle Tennessee in this one. The run defense for Louisiana Tech was porous once again. Thankfully for their sake, wasn't enough for Middle Tennessee to come away with a win. But that first half, the similar concerns that we've seen from this defense were rearing its ugly heads. Missed tackles, unable to fill the gaps Middle Tennessee is literally running free. They had a 69-yard touchdown to open the game, where literally the only person that touched the runner was right before he crossed into the end zone. Louisiana Tech was able to settle in on defense, able to keep that in check, and obviously walked into halftime up 27-21. But that third quarter really was the difference. Obviously the pick six from Willie, I should say, And then the two other interceptions from Miles really kept Middle Tennessee from gaining any momentum and to create anything for itself. So if you're the Bulldogs, the last couple of games you've really been able to generate some turnovers, turn those into points. Obviously down the stretch here, if you want to get bowl eligible, that things like that are going to help you out. So I think if you're Louisiana Tech, you like to see your corners really shine today. And prove that obviously, given the situation, they can be playmakers and they can turn the tide in games like this. So I think that's encouraging to see. Over on the offensive side, boy, I've covered a lot of wide receivers in my time before I got to Louisiana Tech. I got to say, Tre Harris is probably one of the best that I've seen. His ability to just make people miss in space, beat his man pretty much at the line of scrimmage right when the ball is snapped. I've watched him a couple times, even when the ball wasn't thrown to him. I rarely saw him not beat his man on his first step. He's just so quick. And obviously at that size, it gives him that ability to kind of make guys miss in space. He is a dynamic playmaker for this offense. I know we made a lot about the quarterback situation for this team at the beginning of the season. Parker McNeil, Landry Liddy, Matthew Downing for a time. And obviously there was some inconsistency there to start the year. But man, I can't think of a better weapon. Obviously they're amazing receivers all across the country, which we'll get to here in a second. But I think if you're Tre Harris, you got to feel like you're the best receiver in Conference USA at this point. If you're not the best, you've got to be number 2 or number 3. He 157 yards, 2 touchdowns today. He had 143 yards at half. There's not really a whole lot to say. I mean, he truly took over the game. Parker McNeil came back from injury after Landry Liddy started against FIU a week ago and came back and was torching Middle Tennessee downfield. Hit Cyrus Allen for a 41-yard touchdown to start the night off, and then just kept going back to the well with Tre Harris. He only finished with 7 catches, Tre did, but he made those catches count. Took them to distance, and McNeil just has a connection with Tre, and I can see why you would. He's one of the leading receivers in the conference. After this game, we'll have to see how the stats line up for every other team in this conference. But Tre right now is tied for 3rd in the country with 9 receiving touchdowns, close to 812 yards on the season. He is just a dynamic playmaker that if you're Sonny Cumbie and this team, you got to hope can stick around. Unfortunately, that's not news maybe Louisiana Tech fans want to hear, but he's a third-year sophomore. There's plenty of football left for this kid to play, and I think if you're Sonny Cumbie and this coaching staff, you got to really make a priority in the offseason to say, hey, we got to keep Tre Harris in this program. Obviously, you feel excited about what Cyrus Allen can do. He had 109 receiving yards tonight. Smoke Harris obviously will be leaving. Griffin Hebert will be leaving. I think if you're Sonny Cumbie, you have to make it a point of emphasis. We have to keep Tre Harris in this program to take us, where we want to go. Obviously, Landry Liddy looks to be this team starter next year, depending on how things shake out. What better way to start his Louisiana Tech career off with an explosive, playmaking threat like Tre Harris? So if you're Sonny Cumbie, you got to hope that the transfer portal, the NIL, madness of the college football world doesn't reach your walls. Because if you're Tre Harris, I would imagine you're going to be receiving some phone calls here towards the tail end of this season and the off season, just based on the way that he's playing. He truly is one of the most explosive receivers that I can remember watching. He had an amazing catch down the sideline where everyone in the press box literally had to look at the TV at least 3 times because we thought there was no way that someone was going to be able to catch that ball. But credit to him, he has emerged this season as the Bulldogs' clear question number 1 receiver. So pretty exciting stuff if you're Louisiana Tech down the stretch here. And kind of mentioning down the stretch, obviously 3 games left in the regular season, 3 games left for Louisiana Tech to try and get bowl eligible. They go on the road next week to UTSA, who is leading Conference USA, a perfect 4-0. I'm recording this. I don't know what their game result was today, but I would imagine that they probably got a W in that one. So you're walking into a hostile environment where Louisiana Tech 0-5 on the road this year. And the challenge is not going to get any easier this coming week against UTSA, who, like I mentioned before, is the cream of the crop in Conference USA. Then after that, you stick on the road with probably one of the worst teams in the FBS in Charlotte. Again, FIU wasn't exactly all that good on paper, and then they end up beating you in double overtime. So not going to take anything for granted, but at least on paper, Charlotte appears to be a winnable game for this program. And then they come back home to end the year with UAB. So if you're Louisiana Tech, to get bowl eligible, you got two pretty challenging games in UTSA and UAB, and then what would seem like a winnable game in Charlotte, to give yourself an opportunity to go bowling to end the season. So if you're Louisiana Tech, you got to find a way to make sure that the explosiveness you saw on offense tonight, nearly 460 yards of offense tonight against Middle Tennessee, you got to hope that sticks, and you got to hope that this defense can continue to create takeaways to give the ball back to your offense. And if you're Louisiana Tech, that's really all you can ask for, because at this point in the season, you've done yourself no favors up to this point with the record that you have. But if you can find yourself heading your stride down the season, down the stretch here in the season, and get yourself bowl eligible, that's what it's all about. And if you're Sonny Cumbie, you got to hope that your team can rally here late and give yourself that first that bowl win as a head coach. So it'll be interesting to see how Louisiana Tech responds. But as of tonight, that's going to be a 40-24 win over Middle Tennessee for Louisiana Tech. They are now 3-6 overall, 2-3 in Conference USA. For the Ruston Daily Leader, I am Matt Belinson. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Tech in 10. Thank you all for listening, and have a good one.